Welcome to the France 24 debate. The rift between Israeli and Palestinian has never been so wide. Mike Pence arrived in Jerusalem for a two-day visit. One of his first statements was to endorse Donald Trump's recognition of the Holy City as the capital of Israel, a move that will not fill the hearts of Palestinians with hope. They see occupied East Jerusalem, as they call it, as the capital of their Palestinian state, if and when it's ever established. Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas didn't hang around to meet Mike Pence, as the Palestinian Authority sees the current US administration more and more as a lost cause for them. Abbas is in Brussels. There he's seeking UN recognition of Palestine, echoing UNESCO's decision of 2011. Abbas said he's determined to see a unified and independent Palestine state. Meanwhile, the Israelis, led by Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, applaud Trump, Pence and all the US allies that back their view on the status of Jerusalem. So can the centre ground still be seen, if at all reached, with the increasing polarisation between Israel and the Palestinians? Our guest to discuss the situation and all the implications, and they are many. Here in the studio, Gil Michele, Editor-in-Chief of COSA. Thank you, sir, for being with us. Pleasure to see you. On the other side of our studio, William Jordan, formerly of the US State Department. Thank you for joining us. By satellite from Ramallah, Noor Odeh, former spokesperson of the Palestinian Authority. Thanks for being with us, Noor. We'll be with you shortly. And from Tel Aviv, Dan Shuftan, Director of the National Security Status Center at the University of Haifa. Thank you for joining us. First, let's take a look at the developments of the day. Nadia Massi has this.
These words are music to the ears of the Israeli right.
By finally recognizing Jerusalem as Israel's capital, the United States has chosen fact over fiction. In the weeks ahead, our administration will advance its plan to open the United States Embassy in Jerusalem. And that United States Embassy will open before the end of next year.
Plenty of applause in the Knesset for the Vice President's announcement, which soon drowned out protests from Arab lawmakers. But Palestinians say the embassy move is the death knell of an already moribund two-state solution.
President Pence is dealing with an alternative reality. They have just finished destroying the chances of peace. They have taken Jerusalem off the table. They have single-handedly violated every single requirement of peace. And now he says peace is closer. It has never been further away.
The status of Jerusalem goes to the heart of this conflict. Israelis consider it the indivisible capital of the Jewish state, and the embassy move merely catching up with a reality they've accepted for 50 years. But for decades, Palestinians have been promised the east of Jerusalem as the capital of their future nation. And by relocating the embassy, Palestinians feel that dream is now further away than ever.
Let's start with the views here in the studio, and start with you first, Gil Michele from COSA. The situation there, we see Michael Pence in the Knesset, and the PLO describing that as, the words they used were, a gift to extremists.
Well, there are two dimensions. First of all, everything they say is true. I mean, Jerusalem is the capital of Israel. They are moving their embassy to West Jerusalem, territory that even the Palestinians don't reclaim as theirs. The problem is not with the lyrics, the problem is with the music.
Okay.
Everyone understands that it's a way to support Israel, and the worst thing for the Palestinians is it reflects the new brutal power balance. The Palestinians doesn't have a superpower support, neither the United States, nor Russia, nor China are supporting them like they used to have during the Cold War. The Arab states abandoned them to their destiny. We even read in the New York Times a couple of weeks ago that an Egyptian intelligence officer called senior journalists in the Egyptian media and told them to play down, to say that the Palestinians should renounce, should recognize the fact that they are weak. And that Abu Dis, which is a locality outside of Jerusalem, could be called Jerusalem, and it will be their Jerusalem. So what's happening now is just the brutal way that this current administration has to give a name to a power superiority, to the new balance of power.
So, but in terms of Jerusalem as capital of Israel, you would be 100% behind that?
I think that it's... yes, but I'm not sure it's the cleverest thing to do now in the current situation. If we have a global strategy, and we give candies to each side from time to time. Sometimes it's real things. Sometimes it's symbolic candies. I'm not against it, but I don't see how what happened a month ago or what will happen in late 2019 will help advance the cause of peace in the Middle East. And even if everyone knows that the Palestinians are weak, I don't see why you should shout it from the rooftops.
Before I get Noor Ode to answer some of those issues, I'll bring in William Jordan here, the former US State Department official. William, in terms of what we've seen today, Pence going to Jerusalem in this way, saying what he said, the way he said it, what's your interpretation, your analysis of that?
Well, picking up on what was just said, I mean, this was indeed music, but it was music that was meant for American ears. It was meant for the base that supported Donald Trump. It was meant for the financial backers of Donald Trump, including Sheldon Adelson and others on the far right in the United States who are very staunch supporters of Israel, the evangelicals and others like Pence who believe very strongly that the key to American aims in the region, namely defeating Islamic extremism and terrorism, requires a very, very close relationship with Israel. So I think that, there was that. There was also the fact that I think Mike Pence was basically speaking in the Knesset only to Jewish Israelis. He didn't care about the Arab parliamentarians who left or protested. He didn't care about any of the other non-Jewish Israelis who might be in any way concerned or interested by what he had to say. He was speaking to that audience. And I think that, after having just come from Jordan, having just come from Egypt, what he was laying down was a very clear marker that the Trump administration says what it means what it says, and, the Palestinians and anybody else who doesn't go along with that is going to have to learn to live with it. Now, having said all of that, I think that, what Pence said, in a smoother delivery than Donald Trump would have delivered, was a very shrill sort of far right-wing position on everything in the Middle East these days that we're very used to hearing in the United States. And from that point of view, personally, I am chagrined to hear him say it. But if it goes further than what Trump did a month ago, or a little over a month ago in Washington, in declaring, that Jerusalem is the capital of Israel, and we're going to put the embassy there. If that ends, the central role played by the United States in what has been for a long time a moribund peace process, a peace process for which the United States cannot play any longer a useful role, then I'm all for it. And I agree. I think that the United States should have as the base of going forward the idea that Jerusalem is the capital of Israel. I mean, I do think that factually West Jerusalem certainly is the capital of Israel. As far as trying to, continue to play the game, play this idea that somehow by the United States speaking in some way, however factually or not, on the future status of Israel, in other words, deciding that issue for all of the parties, if that prejudices the U.S. role as a good broker, so be it. Because right now, what the negotiations need is they need strong parties with a clear idea of what it is that they want. They need leaderships prepared to take the risks and to take the decisions that will lead to peace. And they need, on both sides, Palestinian and Israeli, a calmer, more secure sort of political base from which to operate. Right now, that doesn't exist. The conditions are not there for any advance on the peace process. And so pulling the United States out would actually be a good thing, in my view, because it would require the parties, if they decide they want to explore new ways to conduct negotiations, to do what has happened in the past, which is the only way negotiations reached any meaningful level, which is resort to intermediaries and to take chances in direct contact with one another for peace. Look at what happened in the 1970s between Egypt and Israel, and look at what happened in terms of the Oslo channel that was created that finally brought about, a process that led to anything of consequence.
William Jordan, thank you very much. Let me bring in from Ramallah, Noor Odeh, who's listening intently, the former spokesperson for the Palestinian Authority. Thank you for being with us. Basically, I'll throw it over to you. Give us your reaction to what you've been hearing and to what obviously you've heard today from Mike Pence.
Well, I mean, what we all heard from Pence sounded more like a sermon. I do agree with your guest from the former official in the State Department, that he was speaking to the base, that he basically did not care about the anybody but the Jewish Israelis who were listening and cheering on. Mr. Pence exhibited extreme racism by omission. He exhibited the kind of fundamentalist views that we know that he has regarding the region. And he also ignored the pleas and the statements of all church leaders in Palestine, in Jerusalem specifically, that told him that this policy was a bad idea. It ran counter the interests of Palestinian Christians and counter the interests of peace and advancing peace. Having said that, I think that talking about recognizing realities is, while characteristic of the Trump administration, which prefers alternative realities, is also a cop-out in terms of international politics. There is a tenet in international law and relations that does not recognize realities born out of aggression and violence. The fact that Israel occupied East Jerusalem in 1967 does not make recognizing Jerusalem as Israel's capital something ordinary and normal and something that we should all just live with. Jerusalem, at least the Palestinian position has always been that Jerusalem should be the capital of both states, East Jerusalem for the Palestinian state and West Jerusalem for the Israeli, and that the city must remain open because of its centrality to all faiths and because of its centrality to human civilization. It should not be a divided city, so to speak. It should be a shared city. What the American administration has done, what Pence did again today, is reiterate that the United States is party to this conflict. It is an accomplice in the occupation, in its perpetuation, in rewarding Israel for committing violations of international law, in standing by it while it flagrantly violates Palestinian rights, and declares that it has absolutely no interest in the two-state solution. I have to point out that while the Israeli government, the leading Likud party, and almost all parties, including Herzog party, which is, funny enough called opposition, have all ditched and abandoned the two-state solution from their platform. Interestingly, the Palestinian public still overwhelmingly supports the two-state solution. Palestinians have their problem, they have division to overcome, and so many other things. But the fact is, if we're going to be objective, we must recognize that Palestinians have been ready for a two-state solution. They know what needs to be done, but they're not ready to be bullied into submission, so to speak. And that's what the Trump administration wants, and that's what it will not get.
No, Odeh, thank you very much indeed. In Tel Aviv, Dan Shufdan is waiting for us, Director of National Security Status Center at the University of Haifa. Dan, in terms of what we've been hearing, please comment on that. But what is your feeling about what Pence had to say today? Mike Pence, Vice President, talking in the Knesset and obviously giving his backing to everything Benjamin Netanyahu would want.
Basically, I think that what the Trump administration have been doing is to recognize the broader realities of the Middle East. Let's start from the minor issue of Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. Jerusalem is the capital of Israel since 1949. And we are speaking about West Jerusalem. Even if the Americans moved their embassy to Jerusalem, they will move it to West Jerusalem. That's a fact. They recognized it. The alternative was the concept that we had since 1947, namely that Jerusalem is an international city. This is dead since 1948, and this is recognition of one particular reality. The second reality is that the so-called peace process is dead for at least a decade. A decade ago, Olmert, the Prime Minister of Israel, proposed the Palestinians a Palestinian state with the division of Jerusalem, with 100% of the magnitude of the territories that Jordan lost in 1967. And Mahmoud Abbas rejected it, and the Palestinians did not seize the opportunity. So Israelis today, I think they're right, but even if they were wrong, this is a political fact.
Are we talking about
Israelis
facts?
today know that
Because
can
this
we
is
please
false.
have
Bear with us,
me
please, Noor.
speak as I let you? If you want to have a civilized discussion, please let me speak the way I let you speak. The
Then kindly stick to
Israelis
facts.
offered I think we need to have a civilized discussion where I'm not interrupted. Can you please assure
Noor
that I'm not
O'Day,
interrupted?
can you bear with us, please? Dan, please continue.
Okay.
Go ahead, Dan, continue.
After the Israelis, for the last 10 years, there is no peace process. There is a blame game. There is a fantasy in Europe that there is a peace process. The Obama administration had a fantasy that they can bring peace in 9 months. It was ridiculous. The chances were zero. And it is not working. And even if objectively this can be contested by some, if you look at the overall attitude among the overwhelming majority of Israelis, coalition and opposition, right and left, people today realize there is no partner on the Palestinian side. The Palestinians undermine, we just had Mahmoud Abbas delegitimize the state of Israel by saying that what it is a collection of Jews brought here by the Europeans who have nothing whatsoever to do with the region. The Israelis recognize that the Palestinian society, not only the Palestinian government, is supporting terrorism, financing terrorists. Everybody who kills Jews gets rewarded.
Dan, Shiftan, I need to stop you because time is against us and we need to go to a break. I will let you take up where you left off in the second part, and I will let Noor O'Day reply to that as well as our guests in the studio. Stay with us.
I'm sorry, you have not allowed me to present.